This is a response to SpawkTalk and his response to TheElmoIsEvil. Hi, how you doing? I have some comments, but basically capitalism does need to be regulated. It's just a question of degree. You said, SpawkTalk said, free market theory does not assume perfect knowledge, and you then listed a bunch of theorists and you said that they didn't assume perfect information. From what I can see, neoclassical economics does assume perfect information most of the time. Or even if it doesn't, even if they don't, they assume there's enough information. Okay, so the market isn't as efficient as it could be, but it's still good enough. Like you said in your video, not every peanut butter will be available, but 80% will be available, which is enough. Now, is that the case? When you think about how much money firms spend on marketing and sales, it's clear that rather than perfect information, it's often the opposite. Some companies exist exactly because there isn't anywhere near enough information. Their role is as information broker. So for example, a recruitment firm, the buyer, the company, wishes to hire someone, but it has practically zero information on candidates and prices. If they did have the information, they would hire the employee directly, but they don't have the information, so they use the recruitment firm to obtain it. The recruitment firm is an information broker, and it exists in business precisely because there's nothing like perfect information in that situation. So what I'm saying is, even if a theorist admits that there isn't perfect information, I think they still assume way too much information is available. And I think that's kind of endemic in neoclassical economics. Now, you said that's a human problem, and it's something the state doesn't need to get involved in. Well, I think that kind of depends. Clearly the government can't be in the business of disseminating information, but it can mandate an efficient market. So let's agree that the efficiency of the price mechanism in a free market system relies on buyers having market information. If buyers don't have that information, or if the information is incorrect, then we have a problem. The system isn't working as efficiently as it could. So the government needs to create a trading environment to facilitate that. And we have this already. So for example, creating a false market is a criminal offence. That's where a company tries to prevent a buyer or seller from obtaining market information, or it tricks them into obtaining false information. So there's a case going on at the moment in the City of London where a bank sold a business to another business on the basis of false information. The bank, acting essentially as an information broker, created false bids to boost the price. That's illegal, and it should be illegal. And the whole AMD versus Intel thing is similar. The 2005 lawsuit claims Intel paid manufacturers to not sell rival products. In other words, restricting customers' access to products. It's not allowed, and it shouldn't be allowed, and we need the state to force companies to trade in a legitimate way. If you let this stuff happen, the bigger companies get bigger and you end up with a monopoly. And indeed that happens anyway. Over time markets consolidate to fewer and fewer players. That's the whole point of antitrust legislation. In the UK we have Monopolies and Mergers Commission. Capitalism, left to its own devices, always ends up creating a monopoly. That's the logical endpoint. It's kind of ironic. It gives rise to a company that destroys the market that created it in the first place. We know this. We've known this for hundreds of years, and that's why we enact legislation to specifically prevent the creation of monopolies. So, do we need to regulate capitalism? Absolutely. That's all I wanted to say on the regulation thing. You mentioned Crusoe economics. Where there's an island and you add a guy and another guy and the market emerges naturally. I get what they're saying, and I'm not arguing with that as such. But this is just a little observation from me. Have you noticed how often economists think this way? The way they come up with philosophies and models. It's a very different way of thinking. For example, from say a scientist. The way a scientist comes up with models is different. The economist he theorises based on some assumptions and his understanding of human behaviour, and then he comes to some conclusions. A little bit like the Crusoe story. You can see this, there's a video on YouTube, Waterblock, explaining Crusoe economics. What's going on there? That is deductive reasoning. But when a scientist comes up with knowledge, he uses inductive reasoning, also called empiricism, observation. Now, I know inductive reasoning can be flawed, Karl Popper, the Black Swan and all that, but deductive reasoning isn't any better. If you start with bad assumptions, you get bad conclusions. Do you think it's kind of weird that economists lean so heavily on deductive reasoning? I mean, I sometimes wonder if the whole field's slightly wonky. It's all kind of, mind games. Jack and Ori tell me a story. There doesn't seem to be enough matching up of reality with the theory. Yeah, I think that's all I wanted to say. Okay, thanks.